Good evening, everyone. Everyone's in a good mood, it sounds like, out there. That's good. Welcome to our council meeting. We start off our meetings with the traditional, recognizing that we are holding this meeting on the traditional territories of the Coast and Strait Salish people, specifically the Kwungan-speaking people known today as the Esquimalt and Songhees First Nation, and that their connections to these lands continue to this day. I also just want to point out that we do live stream these proceedings, so you can watch them at home. But also, if you come forward and speak at the microphone, you will be recorded for posterity. And with that, we'll kick off our meeting. First off, we have a series of minutes to adopt. Is there anybody has any changes or corrections to any of them? In which case, we'll do them one by one. Seeing none, just need a motion to approve.
Move approval. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. Thank you very much. Item number 2, Mayor's remarks. I'll try to do these fairly quickly. I had the privilege of sitting on the Provincial Urban Deer Advisory Committee, or PUDEC, call today. Just the first meeting they've had this year. And it was just an update on the two programs underway under the experimental venues. And so one was the report on translocation and the success of that project, and the other one was an update on our project here in immunocontraception in Oak Bay. No surprises, we've already had all the details at this table for the immunocontraception. The translocation was interesting, absolutely, and they say they will share the reports with us, so I'll happy to send those around. The interesting thing was there was a fairly high mortality rate with the translocation. They had previously higher, but the survival rate of the wild deer that were measured was about survival rate over 2 years about 75%, and of the transplanted deer about just under 50%. So it was quite a drop for the transplanted deer. And that was a significant improvement over previous attempts. However, they've modified the thing. So it was an interesting update. Nothing we don't know in terms of our current project. I did also have the honor of speaking at the Oak Bay Volunteer Services or Society's annual general meeting and recognizing the long service, upwards of 30 years for some of those volunteers. So very impressive. And I think they have 2 people in the 35-year category next year. So some very dedicated volunteers in our community. And I also attended the Oak Bay High School Alumni Association, and both just to be there, but also they asked me to give a talk. So I talked about the history of schools in Oak Bay, which is a lot of fun to do, although it's hard when you're giving a presentation. And there was 3 people, for example, from the class of 49, Oak Bay High class of 49. So there's lots of people who have had lots of years of experience and knew most of the buildings that I was talking about in person. And last but not least, this weekend I was able to attended the Kiwanis 70th anniversary, or 70th birthday celebration at the Kiwanis Tea House at Oak Bay at Willows Park, which was very nice to sort of recognize the length of time that they've been servicing the community. That's it for my remarks, and we now step into the public participation period. Public participation period allows anybody from the public who wishes to come forward and speak to, please come forward. Yep. You know, you have to run to get it first in line. I'm just going to tell everybody what the rules of the game are, so that everybody understands. We have in our procedures bylaw up to 20 minutes for people to speak to council about any topic that's of interest to them or to the municipality. We just ask that you say your name and your municipality of residence. Just write down your name as well, so we get your spelling right in the minutes. Each person speaking has up to 3 minutes to say your piece. Welcome. Can you just, I think.
Put it more towards your mouth.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my voice is rather bad this evening, so if you forgive me. And also forgive my frankness this evening. But as past councillors know,
can you just say your name? And
oh, yeah, sure. It's Richard Lee, 1598 Monterey Avenue, Victoria.
Thank you.
Okay. So you may have read my letter to the editor of the Oak Bay News on Friday. Unfortunately, the whole letter was not printed as I submitted it. The 9.2 tax increase, which I calculated, was front and center in that letter, but the calculation wasn't provided. And neither was an important explanation of how our municipality is missing large sums of revenue that was also not printed. The most important items I wish to underline this evening are charges for developers and fees that are not levied on secondary suites. Secondary suites are coming up in item 7 tonight, but I probably won't be able to stay. As you know, suite occupants benefit to the tune of $2,000 to $3,000 each. Those are the benefits that accrue to each suite when you pay out for the police, transportation, fire, and so forth in our municipality. And there's a misconception going around that because BC Assessment Authority taxes houses, that these suites are going to be captured. Unfortunately, BC Assessment Authority only increases the assessment on an individual house by by $10,000 to $15,000. That amounts to about 0.1% of increased assessment value. You do the arithmetic, it's peanuts. It really is peanuts, the amount that suites are contributing to the coffers of our municipality. Frankly, this comes to about $1.6 million for 650 suites, which is the medium that the consultant gave us of 500 to 800 suites in Oak Bay. Frankly, there are many in our community who are fed up with subsidizing some residents and the developers. Developers are not charged fees here either. They get away scot-free. So I'm here to ask you to raise the priority of establishing meaningful levies so they contribute to our tax base. It's time that we all shared the cost of the benefits we receive from this municipality. Now, something that really fascinates me, and I'm no great mathematician, but I can do basic arithmetic.
We're almost out of time, so I'll
Oh,
give you a
I'm
little
out.
warning.
That's right. I'll come back next week. Thank you very much.
No, Mr. Lee, I actually have a email to you, and it's sitting in my outbox that I haven't sent yet to respond to the letter, just to clarify some things. If you want to send me your full letter, I'm happy to just actually go through that and try and give as many answers as I can.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to come forward? Nobody else? All right. Thank you very much. We'll come back to this table then. Next, item number 4, we have a tree protection bylaw application for reconsideration of refusal, 2031 Runnymede Avenue. Mr. Heideley, I believe you're here for this item. Would you like to speak to it?
Thank you, Your Worship and fellow council. The applicant applied to remove a 2-stemmed English holly on their property. At this time, parks don't have the mechanism in the current bylaw to move forward with an improvement or a removal of the actual species of this tree. It's a tree that we do consider a invasive tree, and a tree that we work hard to remove from our native parks.
Very good. I see the applicants are here for this. I'll call you forward if there's any questions, but other than that, we'll have a quick, is there questions of the council? Councillor Appleton?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to staff. So then I gathered by the tone of the memo that this is a berry. This is a female tree, then a female holly. So it's producing berries then.
That is correct.
Any other questions? I'll get a motion if there's.
I would like to move, hang on, because I haven't got it right in front of me, that there's no motion on here. That we allow the tree to be removed based on section number 1 of the bylaw.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed? There we go. Fairly straightforward ask, and I appreciate you bringing it forward. I think it meets the needs of the community in these cases to be able to get past our bylaw. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Braithwaite.
Just to clarify, I think that this is an area that staff do struggle with, and so when we do look at the tree protection bylaw, this hopefully will be captured so that staff might be able to make that decision on their own without having to bring it to council.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite, and yes, that will be in the new bylaw. I will add that this particular property, considerable improvements have been made to the actual landscape. From what it was many years ago to what it is now, it's honestly been transformed.
It's worth pointing out, Mr. Heidley, and I would like to thank the applicants for that work. It's been a tremendous improvement to the natural landscape of that property since you took ownership of it. So thank you for all the work that you've done and clearing out the ivy and all the pieces. So thank you. All right, on to item number 5, animal control contract extension. Who am I handing this over to? Ms. Varela?
Thank you, Your Worship. So there is a recommendation before you that the district waive its purchasing policy and extend the animal control contract to Victoria Animal Control Services until July 1st, 2021. This will allow staff time to review the animal control bylaw. There will be a discussion with council, of course, during that time about desired service levels. We have had a contract with this company for 12 years, have been satisfied with the service. Last year, dog license revenue for the district was just over $62,000. The amount paid to the Victoria Animal Control was just over $74,000, and the number of dog licenses processed in 2018 was 1,669 licenses.
Very good. Thank you very much. We have the representatives of Victoria Animal Control Services here. If there's any questions, probably they're the right bodies to ask if there's any questions around the finances or any other pieces. Yeah, Councillor Patterson?
Just out of curiosity, because I do always see Victoria Animal Control Services, how many other suppliers of these types of services do we know that offer them in this district?
Ms. Varela, I'll let you answer the question.
I'm aware of one other.
That's my understanding as well. Councillor Green?
Thank you. Just a few comments. I remember this discussion when it came forward. I think it was in 2012. Mayor Murdoch, you were on council at the time as well, and there was some discussion about whether we would leave the service and go to the CRD. And I think the decision we made at that time was a good decision. I think this company has served the municipality very well, and I've heard nothing but positive comments about their level of service and their care and concern. So unless there's a reason why we wouldn't do this, I would certainly move this motion. Well, I shouldn't move it right now until everyone has spoken, but I would support the motion.
All right. I have a quick question, if I might ask the members from Victoria Animal Control Services to come forward. And if you could just state your name and municipality for the record.
Good evening. My name is Ian Fraser, and I live in Saanich.
All right, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Fraser. The question I had for you was the dog licenses, at least in Victoria, are available through other areas, through pet stores and through even, I think some other venues as well. Is that something that we might be able to take advantage of in Oak Bay as well?
Yes. In the City of Victoria, we provide services to the City of Victoria, to Oak Bay, and to Esquimalt. And in the City of Victoria, we're also the dog license administrators. So we actually distribute all of the dog licenses. I actually establish a network of 13 different vendors throughout the City of Victoria in practically each neighborhood, such as Fernwood, James Bay, North Park, so on and so forth. We have a licensed vendor. Sometimes they're a hardware store, sometimes it's a veterinarian office, a pet store. Those are the sort of private vendors that we use. They're allowed to keep 10% of all the revenue. And we just distribute the tags, we collect the information, we do all the data entry, and we maintain the information and use that, of course, from the license lists. And we remit all of the revenue that we take in from licensing. We don't keep any of it. So it's something certainly that Oak Bay could take advantage of. There are a couple of pet stores in Oak Bay, and there's probably some other retail outlets that could also be used. It's difficult when you're a dog owner to go to City Hall between 8:30 and 4:30 Monday to Friday when a lot of folks work those hours and don't have access. So the only other place is for an officer at their door, which we do sell tags at people's doors. We have a portable point of sale machine, so we do take cash, debit, and Visa. And but having Oak Bay licenses available at pet stores or hardware store, things of that nature, that would be it would certainly improve the number of licenses sold in Oak Bay. I can assure you that.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess my question then would be to staff, really, is there something that we could not say approve that as a policy or anything tonight, but is the extension of the contract flexible enough from our perspective to look into that over the next couple of years as part of our review of services that we might look at?
Staff will be happy to look into that, Your Worship, and report back.
Okay. And from your perspective, that the contract as is worded could be amended to that effect at any time?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I do need a motion. Councillor Zelka.
Thank you very much, Chair. Through you to staff. The report suggests a 2-year timeline to, revitalize our animal control bylaw. We would like to have some ideas to where staff got this number from, and with respect to balancing it with all the incredible amount of other work that we know is going to be moving forward. Plus, I'm sure we're going to come up with additional priorities somewhere along the way. How confident is staff that this can be done in 2 years?
Ms. Varela?
Your Worship, so Mr. Jones has provided that 2-year timeline. We will be building it into the work plan of the new Director of Strategic Initiatives, and that is anticipated in this workload.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Green?
Through you to staff, Ms. Varela, if we wanted, though, in the meantime, to add other venues for the retail sale of dog licenses, would we have to wait the full 2 years until the review is complete, or could that be implemented sooner? Thank you.
Through the Chair, if staff could have the time to look into that and report back, I just want to make sure I have the information right for you. Thank you.
Councillor Green?
I'm prepared to make a motion if anyone else doesn't want to. So I will move option 1, that the district waives its purchasing policy and extend the animal control contract to Victoria Animal Control Services Limited to July 1st, 2021.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed and opposed. Thank you very much. You have 2 more years. Thank you. It doesn't have the same ring as 4 more years, but that's it. Item number 6, CRD Bylaw 4299, Royal Theatre Area Establishment Bylaw Amendment. I think since Mr. Jones is not here, this falls on my shoulders to give a little context for, so I'll do a quick introduction. Or Ms. Varela, would you prefer to do a little intro? No. Getting a no.
Happy for you to, Your Worship.
Okay. So, for those of you who don't know, the Royal McPherson Theatre Society was formed in around after 1976 when Oak Bay, Saanich, and Victoria purchased the Royal Theatre. Victoria subsequently also purchased the McPherson, but that's not a shared ownership model. So the Royal is owned by the 3 municipalities. The funding model was set at that time of $580,000. That would be the funding, divvied up according to the standard model of CRD at the time, using a subset of various classes of properties and comparing them across the board. That sat on the books since 1978 or something, so a very long time, and that number has never changed. There's obviously been some things around Royal McPherson that have happened over the last year or two, but one of those things that realized was that if, for example, the Royal Theatre in particular, in this case, wanted to change and ask for more money, there was no mechanism in the legal framework for them to do so, of the owners or of the carrier. So in the meantime, this has been outsourced to the CRD, so the CRD manages the funds on an annual basis. And those funds are supposed to be managed with a subcommittee of the Finance and Governance Committee called the Royal McPherson Theatre Society Advisory Committee, which I was appointed as chair, being sort of the neutral third party between Saanich and Victoria. So we've had a number of meetings to look at the scope of this funding bylaw, and there wasn't any interest necessarily in increasing. It wasn't possible to increase the funding this year in any case, but there was agreement that we would up the ceiling amount. So the ceiling amount is set the same for this year, but it's tied to the regional growth. So that's a fairly substantial number because the overall increase in land value in the region is the ceiling. This is the same model that CRD uses for their other arts programs. So, for instance, their public arts funding program, they pass out around $2 million, but I think their ceiling is somewhere closer to $6 or $8 million. So the ceiling does tend to grow faster than the actual amount. And the other change of this that's significant is that the funding formula changes to the current CRD standard, which is based on the complete assessment of all the jurisdictions. It changes our payout in Oak Bay from about $62,000 to about $67 and change. So it automatically increases with the same amount paid out, the share that Oak Bay picks up as part of that. So just eyes wide open, that's the part. Legally, for CRD to change these funding models, it has to go to the member municipalities and get 2/3 majority support so that would mean 2 of Saanich, Victoria, and Oak Bay to get approval to make that change. If this body says it's okay, then it'll go back to the CRD, who will forward it to the province, and the province has to do its due diligence, and we expect an answer sometime towards the end of this year whether or not they'll approve the funding model change. There you go. That's the complete history of the funding model of Royal McPherson, the Royal Theatre, in 3 easy minutes. So that's where we're at. So the ask here is of the CRD is, do we want to agree to these changes? And if so, we just need a motion to say so. Councillor Braithwaite.
Just a clarification, this has nothing to do with the group that came to see us in regards to the charges that the Royal McPherson has set upon some of its main renters.
No, it doesn't. It does not. Certainly not directly. One of the arguments made is that they feel they want to do this partially for financial reasons, mostly just on a principle they want less dark days. The financial question, though, can't be addressed by us unless we change this funding bylaw. There's no mechanism by which we could change and say, well, we don't want to give $580,000 this year. We want to give $600,000 to say subsidize some of the public performances without a change in the bylaw. So it doesn't directly impact this, but it allows for a mechanism by which the members can increase that subsidy should we see fit. That case has not yet been made by the Theatre Society that they need that subsidy to keep the funds the way they are. Just want to make that clear. They may never do that. Councillor Zelka.
Well, thank you very much, Chair, for the explanation. I was wondering why it seems to be fixed at $580,000. So I guess that kind of answers the question in that there's probably some other mechanism that is preventing it from starting at a higher number. So the question I would have related to this, first of all, let me say I'm going to be speaking in favor of the motion to approve this. Yet, just like the library board, I have the same concern with respect to using assessment as the comparison between the various regions. Unfortunately, over the years, Oak Bay now pays in the $60 range per person, whereas folks in, I think, Machosen pay in the $40 range per person for the same library over time. And I imagine this, over time, would also eventually start working its way, providing different assessed values, although Saanich and Victoria probably won't be having their assessed values that different than Oak Bay, but I just had it's more of a principle. I just wanted to point out that it's not the best thing to move forward with, but I'll admit that in a pinch it'll have to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And I should point out one of the potential side corollary benefits of this is that the new bylaw also, because of it's now part of a funding framework, other partners can join. So should the broader region want to say step into as part of the Royal, it's far more likely at the Royal than it is at the McPherson. The Royal actually is a profitable entity, and so they really do are primarily focused on the capital upkeep of the building. That option is available. It's not currently available. I didn't mention this also removes a clause in there that specifically allocates the specific amounts for the capital and the operating. So that's gone in this bylaw as well. It'll just be in general. However, I should point out there was some concern raised by that at the committee level. So there will be a funding policy document to guide future committee members so that they understand that the intent of that funding as it was laid out really was to ensure that the maintenance of the building continues. Councillor Green.
Just a question to you. Thank you. What are the funding contributions of the other two partners, Saanich and Victoria? Do we know that, or do we have that handily available or not? Thank you.
I apologize. I can probably find it. It's of the 580,000. They're split not too unequally between the Saanich and Victoria, but they are different. I don't know what that amount is. It's just based on it's based on the how they split up by.
So we're the junior partner in a sense.
Oh yes, the other two pick up about 250,000 each, or 280,000 each, and we pick up about 60.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Chair. And I guess addressing to you, I just had a question about some of the language that's used in implications on page 3 of the correspondence from the CRD, and it mentions under financial implications, it makes the statement, the potential requisition will increase in subsequent years if assessments increase. Regardless of the potential requisition, actual funding is dependent on committee approval within the budget process. So I'm just trying to get at whether or not this was what you just mentioned, to say that the new bylaw would provide the ability for increased funding based on assessed values, but the individual municipalities and the committee governing the expenditure of the road would then have, they wouldn't automatically get that number. They would get some percentage of it as allocated by the committee. Am I getting that right?
Correct. And it would be funded based on need put forward, as a case put forward by Royal McPherson Theatre Society to that committee. And it is all that committee is made up of 5 elected officials, 2 from Saanich, 2 from Victoria, 1 from Oak Bay. So they have some direct responsibility for the funders as well as part of that. And Councillor Appleton.
Just one quick thank you for that, and just one quick follow-up question. Was there discussion around the committee table about establishing, with that sliding scale or that potential increase in funding, was there the discussion about the establishment of a potential cap, like that it could increase with assessed values up to a certain number, but this would be a new cap number, not 580,000, but a new number to sort of say this would be the maximum that would trigger, say, a re-review of the bylaw or a reconsideration of the bylaw?
That's a great question, and there was deliberation on that factor. And at the end of the day, there is a standard sort of set of wording that passes by the CRD and the province's legislative bodies as to what they approve. And there's a couple of options put forward by the committee to look at in terms of options for how we word this plus this up to a maximum of X. And there's probably the other one that we asked for. Was to keep the ratio of the capital and operational, feeling that it was important to put into as close as we could lock down to make sure that the funding was in fact intended primarily for capital upgrades and pieces. Those were options, and that went to the province, and the province essentially came back and said that they weren't too keen on those. They'd rather keep it inconsistent with the other arts funding bylaws that were in place. And the committee ultimately agreed with that, although there is always some concern when you don't have a really hard max that some wayward group could ultimately bump up that dollar amount quite a lot. Councillor Green?
Thank you. Just one final question. For each increase over time in the future, would the Oak Bay Council of the Day have a voice in that process? Would we be able to have a meaningful voice in the process?
The funding at that table would be done so it's a 3-step process. It goes to the committee, which looks at the needs and makes a recommendation to the budget, the Finance and Governance Committee at the CRD, and that then is reviewed, and then it goes up in the budgeting process to the CRD board. So there isn't any direct oversight from the council, but that process is very public once it hits the Finance Committee piece. I would suggest that if there's any significant change in that funding, it would be a fairly public process. It would be for an ask.
Thank you.
I need a motion or a,
Really?
I do.
Okay. I'm pulling it up again. Seem to be behind tonight. Oh, jeez.
Councillor Patterson, it's like you have your finger on the button.
Will I make the motion?
Please do.
I will move that the District of Oak Bay give consent to the adoption of CRD bylaw number 4299 in accordance with Section 346 of the Local Government Act.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Thanks for all the interest in this, by the way. It was a lot of meetings that we had, so it's nice somebody else cares. All those in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. Thank you very much. Item number 7, secondary suite study process update. Mr. Anderson, I presume, or Ms. Jensen?
Thank you, Your Worship. As Council is aware, we've been working on the secondary suite study. To date, we've undertaken a background review. We've been looking at the district's relevant plans and policies. We've also undertaken a review of some of the other local municipalities, as well as Chilliwack and West Vancouver, as to their experiences with secondary suites. The background review was followed up with an open house that was held on April 24th. That was intended to introduce the study process to the community. We had approximately 120 people attending that event. With the assistance of staff, both from the district and from Urban Systems, who is our consultant on this project, and of the Advisory Planning Commission members who volunteered their time, the community had an opportunity to learn about the study and provide initial feedback. Community questionnaire was also initiated on April 24th, which asked a series of questions to identify some of the issues and opportunities related to secondary suites in the community. That questionnaire ran for 2.5 weeks, to which we had almost 800 responses. As a bit of a snapshot on what we know so far coming out of the community consultation process, residents who attended the open house or responded to the questionnaire provided good representation from Henderson and North and South Oak Bay. The least amount of response came from the Oak Bay Avenue, Harling Point, and Uplands areas. More than 50% of respondents indicated that they lived on a street where secondary suites were present. 22% indicated they owned a secondary suite, and 4% said they lived in a secondary suite. From the open house, participants indicated that the most important conditions to be addressed included requiring owners to live in the same building, ensuring compliance with the building code, providing adequate parking, and this was also reflected in the questionnaire, where the impact to trees was also considered important. Generally, participants indicated the positive aspects of secondary suites as contributing to diverse and affordable housing, benefiting the environment and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, making better use of housing stock, and not having a significant impact on parking. And the negative aspects of suites revolved around overcrowding, infrastructure concerns, parking and noise, and increased costs to homeowners. Now again, this is very much a snapshot. Urban Systems is still working on a review of these submissions, but we wanted to update Council on the initial findings coming out of the open house and the questionnaire.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jensen. These are just for us to receive today, but if there's any further questions of Council, Councillor Patterson, the Councillor Zelka.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the reports. I think it indicates certainly just how much data has to be reviewed and the discussions that are going to need to take place, not only on secondary suites, but on the larger concept of a whole housing plan. I was just wondering, for the open house and the survey data, was that, were they restricted to residents from Oak Bay? Because I know it was held at the rec center, and so there's the open house, and so there's often other users there. So do we have any information on that?
Ms. Jensen?
Thank you, Your Worship. We don't have specific information necessarily on addresses of people submitting into the questionnaire. They were asked the question as to what part of Oak Bay that they lived in or whether they were coming from elsewhere. So we can tell you the percentages of people that were coming from various neighborhoods. For the open house specifically, we did ask people sign in when they attended the open house. Approximately 114 of those actually wrote in and signed into the open house, and we do know that the bulk of those were Oak Bay residents.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zelka?
Thank you very much, Chair. This is one of my favorite topics. I just want you to know, and I have a number of questions, and I'm fascinated with the information that as it was assembled, and I'm looking forward to some of the conclusions that Urban Systems will be able to come forward for us. But I wanted to start out by touching on the minutes from way back in item 1, because in the minutes, Mayor Murdoch is quoted. These are the minutes that we've accepted. Mayor Murdoch added that the intention of the is to co-terminate the secondary suite study and the housing needs report processes. And if I remember correctly, with all the various motions and amendments and things that we've agreed upon in terms of scheduling, that the secondary suite study and the housing needs report processes will terminate together. I'm seeing a lot of work being done on secondary suites, and I'm sure there's lots more to do. My question through you, Chair, is other than applying for the grant, what processes are being done to ensure that the housing needs report will catch up to the secondary suite study before it finishes? Thank you.
Can't get away with just one update, apparently. Ms. Jensen?
But I have the answer. We are literally submitting the funding application to UBCM tomorrow to hopefully acquire funds for them to help with the housing needs report. At the same time, we are also moving forward with a request for proposals that will be going out within the next few days to hire a consultant. Within that document, we have set a time frame as to when that should be completed, no more than 6 months. So as discussed at previous meetings, we anticipate the two of them coming together.
If I may continue, you've answered my second question. Expecting the secondary suite study to take approximately 6 more months, I presume, to get to the point of the final phase.
Ms. Jensen?
Yes, I believe we were anticipating November, December.
All right, if I may just ask a few questions, because for me, key terms need definitions. And I noticed that when I'm having discussions, especially with my spouse, sometimes we use the same words, but we mean completely different things, and that often leads to distress. And I don't want to see any distress here, and certainly no distress amongst the members of the public. So the question I have for you is, what is a suite? So let me first bring up the board that was mentioned in, give me a moment while I find it here. The open house display boards, attachment number 2 of item number 7. If I go to the page number, if I remember correctly, page number 8, yes. Frequently asked questions about secondary suites. We have a definition here of what is a secondary suite. It says that a secondary suite is a self-contained dwelling unit within a single detached dwelling. It has its own entrance, kitchen, and a bathroom. I very much appreciate that being made very clear as to what we're talking about in terms of the boards as they were presented in the public. And I need to sort of say that up front, because what I wanted to ask then is, later on the same page, 2 points further down, how many are there in Oak Bay? It is estimated, I'm quoting now from the board, the same board, it is estimated there are between 500 and 800 unregulated suites in Oak Bay. And I presume the definition of suites here is the same as the definition of suites up there. So I'm going to make that assumption to start. Should I clarify that? Just confirm that that's the same?
That's just if staff have the answer to that question.
We have data available for certain addresses, information available through BC Assessment, data that's been collected internally through the department. I cannot say 100% that all of those 500 to 800 are within a suite or whether some of them are contained within a detached building.
Fantastic.
If I may just, I think it's worth clarification, because what we don't, in terms of our suites, is if we don't have a kitchen, we don't necessarily count it as a suite. It could be, boarders are allowed to stay, but they might be counted as a suite in some other definition. So do we know whether or not that definition is used? Or do they sort of, are some of those more encompassing and may capture other definitions?
The majority of those would be self-contained suites.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Councillor Zelka.
Thank you. If I may continue, I very much appreciate that. I appreciate you mentioning the data from BC Assessments, because back in 2017, a claim was made by one of members of one of our commissions that there were 800 secondary suites. And I dug into the data and I asked for a copy of this BC Assessments data back in 2017, and I received a copy of it. And I went through and saw that according to BC Assessments in Oak Bay, they can validate or verify that there are 475 single-family homes with suites in Oak Bay. And suites has double quotes around it. And the reason why it has double quotes around it is when I go to BC Assessments website and I go into their glossary, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different definitions of suites. 2 of those definitions of suites do not contain kitchens and are perfectly legal within Oak Bay. So the question I have is, on the board, when it says there are between 500 and 800 suites in Oak Bay, are you referring to the same definition at the top of something with a kitchen? Or are you referring to the definitions as provided by BC Assessments, where there are a number of suites that don't have kitchens? For example, I have a suite in my house. It is a bed-sitting room. It's a residential unit that does not contain a kitchenette. It may or may not contain an ensuite bathroom. Essentially, this type of room is just a bedroom. I said yes to the survey that I have a suite because it's legal in Oak Bay. I have rented it to students. There is one kitchen in the entire house, one oven in the entire house. Yet, it's a suite.
So I guess the question is...
So the question is, where does that 500, 800 number come from? And does that number reliably include suites with kitchens, which I believe is the concern here?
Mr. Anderson?
Your Worship, as part of the study, we're going to be looking more closely at that information, and I think I'd rather come back to you with a little bit more clarification in the future. Thank you.
Very much. I'm very much looking forward to more information. And as I say, over the next 6 months, I'm a data hound. I definitely want to see the data right down to the detail level. I'm very pleased to see that the Urban Development Institute at the Pacific Region website has lots and lots of housing data and statistics from government, NGOs, and experts here in BC, in Vancouver. There's some aspects of Victoria in there. But however, unfortunately on the UDI website, it doesn't mention anything about secondary suites. So hopefully we'll be able to find some good data and nail this one down. Thank you.
Councillor Braithwaite, then Councillor Patterson again.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, just a quick question. This one hopefully will be a lot easier than the last one you just had. I noticed that in the information it said that there was 795 surveys done. I assume that's online, and 120 were done in person. And I'm wondering if there's any duplication there, or if we can tell if there's any duplication, or even with the 795 number, could one person have done this, answered the survey 5 times, for example?
Thank you. To clarify, 795 questionnaires were completed in total. We had 120 people attending the open house. Some people completed the questionnaire at the open house, but that is the total of all questionnaires. We did contact MetroQuest, who was the provider for the questionnaire, and we did confirm with them that there were no duplicates through this process.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Patterson again and then Councillor Green.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And coming back to and it's always a question of defining some of the terms that are used, and we come back to one of the goals of secondary suites is to provide affordable housing. Now, that term affordable housing has always been a bit of a problem in discussions in Oak Bay. I am wondering, as part of this ongoing review you're doing, if you will be coming forward with comparative data on number of units, rental costs, demographics, income levels, that type of information, not only for the district, but in comparison to other members of the CRD, just as information as to to really understand the secondary suites and a broader housing plan.
Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, certainly that information is available. The CRD provides all of that. We can make that available to the council.
Thank you, Councillor Green.
Thank you, and through you to staff, thank you very much for a very comprehensive study report out. I really appreciate the information. I think, in my experience in Oak Bay, this is the first time we've had some real hard data around this whole issue rather than anecdotal. One of the reasons I think, and I'll base this on my previous experience in another community that went through this same process, one of the reasons that it's very difficult to determine how many existing suites there are is because, frankly, residents are fearful to come forward. So if we have this approximation of the number, it isn't just based on BC assessment. I've never had a BC assessment authority person come into my home, so I'm not sure how they determine whether or not there's a suite. But secondly, it is hard for owners in a community where they are not regulated or legal to come forward if they're not sure what the outcome might be of putting their hand up. So I think that is certainly one of the factors in trying to collect data on the exact number. The other one is further to Councillor Patterson's comments on affordable housing as an affordable housing option. Secondary suites aren't just an affordable housing option, they are also an accessible housing option. Affordable and accessible are two different concepts. One of the 5.1 under age in the study, in the report on page, I'm sorry, there aren't page numbers, but 5.1 under survey participants, I found it interesting on the age range of those who participated. As to respondents. And one of the concerns I have is that we are an aging community and we are aging out, I think, in some aspects. So I think it's important that wherever possible we try and reach younger cohorts as well to get their input, because I think they will have quite a different perspective on the housing situation in Oak Bay. And I was surprised to see experience with secondary suites just below 5.1. I live on a block street with secondary suites. That's quite a high number, so that was interesting to me. But the data is very appreciated and certainly provides greater understanding as to what the issue looks like. Thank you.
Councillor Braithwaite?
Thank you. Sorry, I just remembered a question that I had wanted to ask. I'm wondering, through you, Mayor, if we might ask MetroQuest for a little bit of additional information. And the information that I would be interested in is in the backgrounder document, the background review document, which was, I think, the last attachment. They talk a little bit about how many or what percentage of single-family homes in the different areas of Sydney, Esquimalt, and Saanich have secondary suites, or that they think have secondary suites. And it talks about how some of them that there was a low uptake of legalization process for illegal suites. And so I'm wondering if we could find out how many in those neighborhoods actually came forward. So, for example, if in Sydney there was 1,000 secondary suites, did 500 come forward and legalize themselves, or did 20? Because I think that's really important for us to kind of realize what the expectation will be on how many are going to come forward, because that has consequences to us as far as staffing goes, as far as the time and energy that we're taking on this goes, et cetera, et cetera. So if possible, if we could get an approximate number of how many in those communities have come forward to legalize. Thank you, if that's possible.
Mr. Anderson, do you want?
We will have to check with our consultants on that. Okay, thank you, Your Worship.
I think, if I may just add on to that question, I think at the end of the day, we have to make some decisions about housing in our community. So the more than the percentage of any one jurisdiction, I would like to understand from the consultants at the end of the day, and from your expertise and experience, how do we maximize the number of people who are currently illegal suites and make them legal? Like, what are the mechanisms for doing that, just to maximize that? I care more about that than I do whether there's 400 or 500 of them. And I also understand that this is a two-part report. One is dealing with how do we do that with the second existing suites, and how do we deal with sort of with some policies around new suites as well for new builds. Is that correct, Mr. Anderson?
Certainly, I was hoping we'd have that point made tonight. Thank you.
Okay, and just for those in the audience, one of the things that we've agreed to, as Councillor Zelka rightly pointed out, is that this suites piece will then tie into our broader housing needs, and then that's really where the interest starts, right? That's where we get a chance to tease out all of this and say, well, good, we know what's possible, we know how we have options for dealing with secondary existing suites. Now what suites we want to legalize, or what housing options do we want to legalize across the board, and start implementing the policies on that. So I'm looking forward to, frankly, to the end of this year when all the studying is done and we have some data to start having this debate about how we're going to actually address these needs and what housing options we want to have. But there we go. I probably jumped in there too early, but I'll say my piece. Councillor Zelka, you wanted to add something?
I'll ask one more question if I may, and I'll ask with a smile on my face, and I'll be very gentle about it. I don't want to upset any of my other councillors. I would like to know if it's possible when we start talking about numbers, if there's somehow the existing legal secondary suites could be teased apart from what's being referred to as unregulated or illegal secondary suites. Since we have a number of suites that are already legal, already occupied, already have students in them, already have boarders, and are already well served, I would hope, within the community. It would be great if we could somehow have those two teased apart, because I do keep hearing from members of the public, it's like it seems to be a point of contention for some that they complain to me about. I don't want to complain, but it would be great to know if we're going to focus on a number, then at least try and tease those two apart so that we can say, okay, we have this many people, this much availability that's being ideally occupied by the lodgers, and maybe we have these other ones that are here that either they are or not occupied, and they're as we refer to here as unregulated suites. Thank you.
I think we'll get as much data as we can get. Councillor Appleton, you wanted to throw something in here?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to staff. Very quickly, I just wanted to take this opportunity to commend staff for the amount of work that's gone in thus far into this report. I think, to my mind, this has been a really successful level of public engagement. I think most of my colleagues were at the open house and was pleased to see so much engagement there. I think this is sort of what the community expects of us as far as how we proceed in our decision making. So I would be remiss if I didn't sort of directly thank staff for putting together just the diversity of outreach materials and coming at this from a bunch of different angles to communicate with the public. I'm also particularly pleased with the engage in the role of the Advisory Planning Commission in this process. I know those folks volunteered their time, and I know that is a role that they signed up for, but I would like it sort of entered into the official record, if it were, to extend my thanks to the work that the APC put in on that project. And I find the results very interesting, and I find the results just really strongly support the role that secondary suites play as a housing option in our community. So I really believe that this is definitely heading in the right direction.
Thank you, Councillor. And I need a motion to receive.
Move receipt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Questions? None. All right. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Item number 8 on our agenda, Oak Bay Heritage Commission minutes.
Move approval.
Move receipts. Right.
Yeah, move receipt. Moved and
Second.
seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. New business reports from other committees. First up is new business. Councillor Green.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to Mayor Murdoch for his support in bringing forward a notice of motion that will come to a next council meeting, I'm hoping. I am going to be bringing forward a resolution that the District of Oak Bay Municipal Council will plan, advertise, and host 3 informal meetings per year between Mayor and Council and the local community, commencing in the fall of 2019 and for the duration of this council term, to be held in a venue located in each of the 3 areas of Oak Bay known as North, Central, and South Oak Bay. So these will be regular annual community meetings, 3 a year. That would be the intention. Thank you.
I look forward to seeing that motion when it comes forward. Is there any other new business? All right. report on the Capital Regional District. Really, there's really nothing else to report since the last time I did a report on the CRD. So just on to other verbal reports. So I'll sort of descend, I think it's sort of there last time. So Councillor Appleton, anything you want to give an update on?
Thank you, Worship. I'm not directly involved with my council responsibilities, but I would note that it is Bike to Work Week. And so I would encourage all present and staff and councillors to to participate as much as possible, and just to recognize that I know that staff have put a fair amount of work into hosting the celebration station, which is on City Hall lawn tomorrow afternoon, starting at 3:30. So I'd encourage everybody to get out there and provide their support. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Councillor Braithwaite?
And I would like to just say that Councillor Appleton was very kind in not telling everybody that he beat me in my car. I was in my car, he was on his bike. Unlike last year when I won in my car, but that's okay. The bikes are supposed to win, so it was very good that he won. And just to let everybody, don't forget that this weekend is the Oak Bay Tea Party. Please come to the Baron of Beef stand and see me and buy a Baron of Beef and support the Oak Bay Tea Party. And there's a dance this year from 6 to 8 on Friday night, and it's all free. So hope to see you there.
Councillor Green?
Oh, thank you. I attended with Mayor Murdoch and Councillor Braithwaite, Patterson, Zelka. I think that was it. We attended the opening of Phase 1 of the GNS, the campus expansion on Beach Drive on Friday afternoon. And I was all day in Vancouver the day before on Thursday with Mayor Murdoch, actually. Not with him, but we were at the same conference. And it was, it's called Governing in the Public Interest, and it was sponsored by the province. And it is for all of their appointees to boards, commissions, tribunals, and agencies. So it was really well done. I have a lot of material to share with both staff and council members if they're interested. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Patterson?
Just wanted to convey the thanks of the sponsors for the Oak Bay Half Marathon. They were very appreciative of all of the assistance they got from staff and from the Oak Bay Police Department. This year's run had just over 1,500 registrants, and I don't have the final numbers, but on Saturday morning, the money raised for charities was over $18,000. So I think everything went off very well. Fortunately, the rain came on Saturday and not on Sunday. That was really appreciated by all of the participants. The streets were, with 1,500, I think they told me that originally the Oak Bay Half Marathon started with about 400 registrants. So with 1,500, everybody ran very close together at the start and spread out after the fact. But the race went off very well, and everybody was very appreciative.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Zelka, anything?
Thank you, Chair. Saturday, June 8th is going to be a busy day, and not only is it the Oak Bay Garagelium, did I get... I keep minute. Garagelium, thank you very much, which I encourage everyone to sign up for. And South Oak Bay seems to always be a hopping place. That's what I loved about South Oak Bay. It was best for garagelium. Yeah. However, on the same day, the Oak Bay Emergency Program is hosting a mini training camp at University of Victoria. For all interested emergency support services, communications, and response volunteers. Basically, we'll be all gathering to get the latest and greatest on what's happening in emergency response and get ready for hopefully an uneventful summer event. Thank you.
Oh, Councillor Patterson?
I don't know when we get to these, but I've had so many copies of this. The CREST annual general meeting was held on May 15th, and I'm very happy to report. Certainly there's many copies of these, so anybody who would like a copy to see the full report out on the annual report can obtain one. And but by year end, CREST passed the halfway mark in the rollout of the P25 technology upgrade. And the $24.5 million technology renewal project remains on budget and schedule. And just one thing that I would also like to raise was that in December 2018, Vancouver Island and the Gulf Islands experienced one of the most damaging windstorm in BC Hydro's history, and the equipment and the staff of CREST both performed above and beyond.
Thank you for that. I don't have anything else to add other than I look forward to the tea party this weekend. That's going to be a lot of fun. All right, on to item number 10, which was part of the amended agenda. It's just the first and second reading of Bylaw 3531.104 and the setting of a public hearing date. This is for the duplex zoning that we discussed at the Committee of the Whole. Was recommended to this body to take this next step. So, if anybody,
I'll move first and second reading of bylaw zoning amendment bylaw to 2019 number 3531.104.
Second.
moved and seconded. Is there any discussion from council? Ms. Hopkins, I'm just gonna make sure I'm not doing anything procedurally here. The procedure here is we have a debate. We have first and second reading, we call the question, and then we set a public hearing date. Is that correct? Is there a call for public input at this point, or just at the public hearing?
Public input will happen at the public hearing.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I'm not missing a step here. Thank you very much for that. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, not opposed? Can we get a motion to schedule a public?
Move to schedule a public hearing on
June 10th, I
June
believe.
10th, 2019.
Getting nods? Okay, good.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, not opposed?
Move adjournment.
Seconded.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed, not opposed? We didn't quite make it before 8 o'clock, but we're close. Thank you, everyone.